We go from murder hobo to paint guzzling teenager to a war zone with hippies to an actual giant penis monster living in an attic. Does it make a lick of sense? Nope. And Ari Aster, based on his interviews for the film, doesn't seem to know what it all means either. Which I feel like as a director and as the writer, you would have an idea of what all this means, but apparently not. You know, there are so many times while I was watching the movie and would pause it, and I'd ask myself, what the hell is that? What's going on? What's happening? What are we transitioning to? Are we going to call back to the other thing? What about those characters? Nah, forget them. We're moving on. I was like, okay. So let's jump into one of the most divisive movies of 2023. Film I had not seen last year because I didn't have a spare 17 hours and 52 minutes to watch it, which is how many people described the film's glacial pace. That film being Beau is Afraid, a movie directed by Ari Aster, who seems like a very nice man who just has some very disturbed and strange thoughts every single day. People need a bit of a background on this movie, a little bit of a synopsis. It focuses on an emotionally unstable man who attempts to manage his anxious tendencies while he embarks on an epic and horrifying and confusing quest to visit his domineering and very controlling mother. For the last several years, Ari Aster has always been held up as this horror and genre-bending genius. That's how he's been described by many film fans, cinema fans, film Twitter, etc. Incorporating, just disturbed and strange imagery in his narratives that's meant to shock its viewers. He's been proclaimed, I feel like, one of the true geniuses of cinema today. And I personally just don't really hold that view of him. While I enjoy something like Midsommar, I think that's his best film, despite its long length. I've always kind of struggled with his films like Hereditary and even The Strange Things About the Johnsons. Those movies to me have always kind of skated by, in my personal opinion, on just some disturbing imagery, a particularly unusual sequence or a single ridiculous, over-the-top, broad performance. I guess I just haven't really gotten the hype surrounding him, I suppose. But clearly, he has affected a number of people, a number of audiences. I'm just kind of like the odd man now. I guess I suppose I'm in the bit of the minority. So when it was announced he was going to do a 3-hour genre-bending epic with complete carte blanche from A24 to do anything he wanted, because, again, his films were, I guess, commercially successful for them. I think Hereditary for the longest time was one of the most successful films. I think Midsommar made money. To be honest, I recoiled from that, and I just didn't end up watching the film last year. But, since I had a lot of spare time on my hands, 17 hours and 52 minutes to be exact, I figured it was time to watch and review it. Like I said, I wanted to catch up on some movies that I'd missed in 2023, and Beau is Afraid was one of those big movies. One of those big divisive movies. One of those movies that was literally on people's best of lists and also on people's worst of lists. And what I watched was a bloated, self-indulgent, incomprehensible mess of just bizarre sequences that led to absolutely nothing. To be briefly positive, there are some beautiful and terrifying looking sequences in this film, which is often the case for Ari Aster's movies. Beau is a man, played by Joaquin Phoenix, who constantly perceives the world as a very scary place. And outside of his shitty apartment building, it's like a war zone with gangsters, drug addicts, and naked hobos trying to stab you with knives and sharpened tools, just dicks. Big floppy dicks just hanging out, slapping against thighs as they're charging at you. And I would be scared too. I would be like Joaquin Phoenix going, "Ah!" the whole time. It's crazy sequences like those that I think Ari Aster really does show his love for choreography. I will definitely always praise him for that. Like how he choreographs these sequences, especially of so many other actors and so many extras. You know, you can tell where the money went into those scenes. Like those are very difficult to shoot. They involve a lot of prep, a lot of time, and just a lot of money. All right, so definitely always going to praise him for that. You know, you have another sequence that involves this animated play, which you guys probably saw in the trailer because you didn't see the movie, that Beau watches and also kind of participates in. And though it makes no sense and serves absolutely no purpose in the film's narrative, it is very pretty and really unusual to look at. It's like, you know what? All this looks great. I just wish it needed to be there because it just doesn't need to be there. Outside of that, the film is self-indulgence personified. Again, it feels like a director wanting to include as many bizarre sequences, dreams, nightmares as he possibly can for little rhyme or reason, other than just to like include them for his, I guess, own amusement. Things happen just to happen, and then we're moved along to whatever crazy scene Astro's cooked up next for Joaquin Phoenix. Right, we go from murder hobo to paint guzzling teenager to a war zone with hippies to an actual giant penis monster living in an attic. Does it make a lick of sense? Nope. And Ari Aster, based on his interviews for the film, doesn't seem to know what it all means either. Which I feel like as a director and as the writer, you would have an idea of what all this means, but apparently not. You know, there are so many times while I was watching the movie and would pause it, and I'd ask myself, what the hell is that? What's going on? What's happening? What are we transitioning to? Are we going to call back to the other thing? What about those characters? Nah, forget them. We're moving on. I was like, okay. I believe it's like, if I were to like, okay, what's this film about? I believe it's like Ari Aster's view on what it's like to have anxiety. And personally, I think his view on that is kind of absolute bullshit. I had like several people actually, funny enough, tell me that the movie isn't about having anxiety at all, but it's actually about pathology. But the film like literally opens up with Beau going to a therapist to manage his anxiety and get medication for his anxiety. And the guy asked him, how are you dealing with your anxiety? You know, I'm someone that suffers from anxiety. And I don't think Ari Aster knows what anxiety is or how to effectively showcase it, except the penis monster. That's accurate. I don't know how he knew about that, but that's pretty accurate. Yes, like I said, the film has a cast with some very talented actors, like Nathan Lane and Amy Ryan and Parker Posey. You've seen some of these people before. Some other character actors as well. But they don't honestly give them much to do, in my opinion. Everything is in service of Joaquin Phoenix's Beau. And Phoenix is, as we all know, is a very talented actor. But I just found his character, and maybe this was on purpose, to be just really annoying after a while. I mean, at first you feel bad for this guy. It's like, okay, clearly something is wrong with him, you know, based on how he's acting and how he perceives the world. But just after a while, man, when you're at the 2-hour mark and you have another hour to go, this movie's 3 hours long. You're like, Beau, fucking grow a spine, man. You've been through this odyssey, okay? You gotta stand up for yourself. I mean, every scenario he encounters, every character he encounters, every penis monster he encounters, he's just like, oh yeah. It's just like, oh, I can only take so much. Like, you know, hearing that over and over and over and over and over again can get, I feel like, very annoying. Can get very tiresome. I mean, after a while, I'm just like, all right, man, you gotta buck up or you gotta shut up, all right? And that never really happens in the movie. Lastly, again, I mentioned this, but the film's running time of 3 hours is egregious. There are huge blocks of time that you can cut out of this movie, and nothing would really be lost. Even like that animated sequence I mentioned before, That's very pretty. And what was used to market the film, that was in every single trailer because of how beautiful it looked. But it could be removed because it serves no purpose other than looking cool. This, to me, is an hour and 40-minute movie of, I feel like, relevant scenes at most. And even then, it would probably feel a bit too long and a bit too self-indulgent. So, I don't know. Ari Aster's proclaimed magnum opus just didn't really work for me at all. A director, I feel like him, left unchecked, just creates so much nonsense. And I would hope because he was apparently taken aback by, I guess, the negative reaction and the mixed reaction to this movie. And you know what? I don't want to hate on everybody, of course, but I would hope that he kind of looks at this, considers the missteps that he took as a filmmaker, and perhaps, he'll move away from being so self-indulgent. Or he'll just continue to become even more indulgent like so many other filmmakers before. And that could also happen too. I'm not sure. We'll see. I don't know what his next project is, chap, but I can't say I'm very excited. Maybe his next project will be something like a Midsummer, which I do feel like that's his best film. I don't love it like some other people, but I do like it. And, I think it's the one that has the best sense of structure. And I think that's what he needs most of all. He needs structure, because Beau is Afraid just lacked all that. It was spread out, and I'm like, I don't know where we're looking or where I'm going, like what on this odyssey. Maybe that was the point, but I don't know. It just left me kind of frustrated and exasperated, going, what the hell was that? by the end of it. And I was like, all right, this first 2 hours, I don't care for this, but that last hour is rough. To me, it's really, really rough. But I don't know. That's just how I feel about Beau is Afraid. I was not a fan of this film. I was hoping maybe it would be like a Saltburn situation where everyone's just like, oh, that's a divisive movie. That movie was on a lot of people's best of lists and worst of lists. Maybe this will be a Saltburn. I was like, nope, not Saltburn. I actually really like Saltburn. This is kind of the opposite of that. So I did not care for it all that much. But what about you guys? For those of you that saw Beau is Afraid, actually, I don't know how many of you saw the movie. I did not do well. I think it's kind of like it's Ari Aster's big, commercial flop, where I feel like both Hereditary and Midsummer made money. They did very well. So, I'm curious to see what's going to be happening with him in the future. But let me know. I'm very curious to hear you guys' opinions on this. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Were you mixed on it? Let me know.